we're going to get started. We'll probably have a few more people coming in, but it's fine. So if everyone could just also make sure they're muted. Yeah, welcome to the Mental Health Abroad breakout session. I hope you guys had a good general orientation as well. So my name's Nicole. I'm a peer advisor at CGIS. I also, for a little context, I'm a sophomore and I studied abroad this past summer in Siena, Italy, doing Italian 230. So I'll probably tell you a little bit about that as we go through the presentation. So if everyone could just scan this QR code to get in, I'll leave that for a minute. It'll also be on the next slide too, so don't worry. Okay, so yes, the QR code's still up, so if anyone still needs that. But we're gonna get started. So first question is, why discuss mental health? So it's because study abroad can create a lot of new and unique pressures due to things such as the different laws, languages, diet, culture, and social expectations, living situations. There's so many different things that we must keep in mind when we're going abroad, because it is obviously very different than being here. So there can be a lot of new challenges when abroad, and so this is something we want to keep in mind. Yeah, also, if the QR code isn't working for anybody, just send me a message with your unique name and I can write your name down so you get participation. Okay, so as a result, these new pressures and situations can impact people with or without pre-existing mental health conditions. So even if you don't have a problem now, it's hard to say whether or not something else could happen when you're there. So these are things you want to keep in mind regardless. And then also just being away from your typical support network on campus or at home might make you feel lonely and isolated. So we're just going to give some tips on how to prevent that. Okay, so here are some things that you should consider. So what kind of housing style serves you best? If your program gives you an option between, let's say, a homestay or an apartment, which one do you think would better suit your interests? And do you tend to isolate yourself when you're stressed or when you're just feeling annoyed? Do you need alone time? That's something you should definitely keep in mind when looking at the different housing options. And this is a personal tip that I was giving. Be honest in your housing questionnaire about what you need. I think that is very important. I lived in a homestay with my study abroad, and I was very honest about all the different things I expected of a host family and what they could expect of me. And I think that's benefited me a lot because I got a family that I ended up loving and that was completely understanding to everything. And so I think that's just something you really need to keep in mind. And it's even not with a homestay, even with an apartment, in terms of location and who you want to live with. These are things you should definitely consider because this is a long-term housing situation. So you want to be as happy as you can there. And then do you have any plans on how to meet new friends or locals if you're in a non-cohort program? So if you're in a program that's only, say, 5 UMich kids, maybe you need a plan to meet some more people who are also studying abroad there or locals. So are there any clubs that you can join at the university you're going to, or things like English conversation groups? I know my one of my advisors, she is a heavy advocate for the English conversation groups. She said that when she was in Prague, that this was such a great way to meet people. She just would meet once a week and they're happy to be practicing their English and to be hearing you practice theirs. So if that's an option, I definitely recommend it. Okay, so here's some preparations you can make. You need to manage your expectations, be very aware of what you should expect of yourself and what's expected of you in terms of classes and traveling budget, all that kind of stuff. And then also research your country. It's a very good idea because there are obviously different attitudes towards mental health around the world, and not everything is like how it is in our Western culture. So you want to look into that so you'll know how readily available mental health services will be while you're there. And also, if this is applicable to you, you should work with the services for students with disabilities. They will be very accommodating towards any problems you may have and any concerns. So if this is something that you need, you should definitely reach out to them. And medication preparation. So obviously you can't really send meds overseas. So this is something you're going to want to plan for ahead of time by talking to your doctor and being like, hey, I'm going to be abroad for 4 months. I need this much of a prescription, and I'm sure they'd be very happy to accommodate with that. And then also you can pre-schedule therapy appointments with GeoBlue. So if you currently have a therapist, one thing about study abroad is that they cannot practice with you while you are abroad because they are not licensed to do so. So you won't be able to talk to your regular therapist, but there are alternatives such as this. So if you are someone who does go to therapy quite regularly and think that is something that you would still like while abroad, then you can pre-schedule these appointments even before you go, and that might be a good thing to look into. So what are some things you can do while abroad? One thing to consider is, what do you do when you're having a hard day in the US? And how can you adapt that to being abroad, and how will that differ? So let's say you're just someone who likes to go on a long walk or be alone, like obviously that's something you could easily do while abroad as well. But if there's something that is very specific to your country that you like to do, then you should keep that in mind and think about how you can adapt that to a new setting. So another important thing is trying to avoid FOMO. As like little as that might sound, it's very easy to get FOMO while abroad because everyone is doing so many different things all the time. So you're going to want to keep in mind that you don't have to do everything. You don't have to travel every weekend. You don't have to go to every social event. I know in the moment it feels like you do, but you're there for so long. You have so much time to enjoy everything. So don't get stressed about that. And maybe you can find some local activities you enjoy. So if maybe you're not in the mood to hang out with the entire cohort, you can just go do something by yourself. And finding something in your city would be great. So, as I said, I was in Siena, Italy. So we would just sit in Piazza del Campo all the time. And that was such a great way to relieve stress and just a very chill environment. So find something you can do in your city, because no matter how much you travel, your city you stay in will be very special to you. A good idea is to develop a routine and manage your time, especially between classwork, social activities, and travel. These are all things we obviously want each and every one of you to get the opportunity to do such travel. But above all, you do need to keep in mind that class does come first because it is study abroad. So you're going to want to be able to manage your time between that. And if you know you have a big assignment or a big test, maybe you can't travel that weekend. So it's just something you need to keep in mind. And don't overschedule yourself during midterms and finals, because in many other countries, they are not as lenient with extensions or changing the date. They will give you the exam dates far ahead of time, and you need to be prepared on that date. So no matter what you got going on, you need to make sure you are prepared and prioritize it above all else. And avoid depending on your friends and family from home. I know that sounds easier said than done, but that was a tip that my partner program gave to me when I was in Italy. And I think at the time I didn't really understand it, but now I completely do. I think you should schedule regular but not daily talks with them, because if you talk to them all the time, it'll just end up making you miss home even more. So it's much better to focus on your friendships in the program and experiencing the city instead, because these people will also understand what you're going through. So they're good people to talk to. And if don't scroll on your social media feeds when down too much, because again, that'll just make you miss home even more, and it ultimately will not serve you or benefit you in any way. For me, I would talk with my family like once a week and different friends once a week, but ultimately was very focused on the people I was in the program with and the city. And I think that's a really good thing you should keep in mind. So here are just some things you can consider doing, just to relieve stress. If these are things that have worked for you in the past, especially, you could journal. I know that's a very good idea. It's also would be kind of cool to look back on. You can do an exercise you enjoy. A lot of places will also help you find if you're really into going to the gym or certain things. They'll try and help you accommodate that where you are. Again, talk it out with your friends on site. They understand what you're going through. They're going through a very similar like situation, or they understand the process better than anyone else really will. So they'd be great people to talk to about it. And then again, do an activity you can only do in your city, because again, you're going to love your city more than anything. So try and think of a fun activity you can do that's just easy and can relieve stress. Okay, so here is an important part. Here are some resources that you will have while abroad. So first is your on-site staff. Each and every one of you will have a partner program, whether it's part of the university or not, that is there to accommodate you. The whole purpose is to serve you guys and to help make your experience better. So if you're having any problems, do not hesitate to reach out to them. That is their whole purpose. They want to help you. So make sure to talk to them if you're going through anything. And again, your friends in the program, I know it gets repetitive, but these are people who are in a very similar boat and also these are just people that you can forge a very strong connection to because you're in such a unique position with them. And you can talk to your host family if you're living in a homestay. Again, as I said, I really loved my host family. So they're all people who are volunteering to do this. They're people who want to meet students and help them explore. So they are going to be there for you. Sometimes there can be some barriers, such as my family didn't speak any English. So that is a little difficult, but still, you can still talk it out with them and they will provide you with any resources they're aware of. And of course, your CGIS study abroad advisors, you all should know who your advisor is at this point, but they are also, again, they're here to help you. Reaching out through email would be the easiest solution, of course. Do keep in mind there is like the time difference, but our advisors are very responsive and they want you to have a good time. So don't be afraid to reach out to them as well. And then there's counseling on site with GeoBlue Insurance. As I said, you can't use your regular therapist while you're abroad. So GeoBlue Insurance will help you find a counselor or therapist in your city or maybe country, depending on how big it is. But again, this varies from country to country. Everything's not like our Western society. So look into it with GeoBlue Insurance for sure. And then there's also a thing called telehealth with Global Wellness Assist, which is also available. That is like, I know we have a lot of things like that in the US. It's a virtual option where you can just text with a counselor and they will help you as well as they can. So it's definitely a good thing to look into if you don't want necessarily regular sessions, but do want some support. I think that's something you should definitely look into, and it's a very readily available resource. And there's other options on GeoBlue Insurance's website as well. So please look into that if this is something that you think is important for you. Okay, so that's all I have prepared for you guys. I do have a Google Doc that I'm going to send out in the chat. So everyone can just open that and make a copy. I'm not going to collect it or anything, but this is something that you guys can do for yourself and to help you plan for how you're going to manage your mental health. I'm not going to collect that at all, so you can be as honest as you'd like with it. And I can stop recording now for the discussions part.